So I think one of the things about INTPs that really annoys other people, the idea of throwing everything in just for the sake of being able to throw everything in. And partly that's the way that we think, is that we take a broad scan of everything and try to deduct from that, try to form theories, try to get to the truth. In another way, it's also extremely egotistical. We're always desperate to prove our intelligence, totally irrelevant to the things that you're trying to do, totally irrelevant to anything that you could communicate. It just reminds me of someone sending me a script. Well, I guess one of the first things I can say about it is that it was wish fulfillment, because this was someone who hadn't done anything and desperately wanted to be recognized as being able to do things, congratulating himself and sort of soothing himself through this piece of writing that was compensatory. And that's really grotesque, but that's also very INTP. The other thing about the script was that each scene was designed with a corresponding chess move that was illustrated at the bottom of the page. For no reason. Chess was irrelevant to the plot and irrelevant to the character, just because he could play chess and knew these moves and thought it would be a clever design, but there was no need. And I found it irritating, because it's egotistical. We tend to do stuff like that. If we're doing something, it needs to have a corresponding ideology for why it's being done, what it's leading to sort of comfort us, to reconcile us towards the world. A maternal womb, in a way, these ideas that we're turning towards and needing the reassurance and the comfort and the guidance from, and we don't do anything unless it has this overarching idea, this overarching ideology that can convince us that something needs to be done, even when the practical realities or the things around us are needing so much else. And to actually get the fulfillment that we want, we need to be more attuned to practicality, not even in terms of a situational practicality, but a biological practicality as well. In our own feelings and our own desires, we'll often extrapolate them into ideas and spend years daydreaming, or forsake a lot of real connection with people because we're too in our heads. It's something you should do something about, but it's the way that we're formed, that our minds are doing so much in a sort of backwards, introverted way, that we expend a lot of energy that way and don't have the capacity for anything else. It's not social anxiety. It's not having social skills a lot of the time. It's not disliking people or feeling uncomfortable around people. It's that the mind is doing so much else because that's its natural function. I remember I must have been around 4 or 5 years old and lying on the floor in my grandparents and looking at the wood and the walls and the patterns and sort of forming in my mind how all of these patterns were fitting together, and sort of, I guess, shape rotating, systematizing this in my mind. And that's just the way I am. But my mind takes a lot of my energy to do this, and it's the same for all of us. Like, we're so ingrained in our systems and in our ideas and in our fantasies that that a lot of the time what's practical to actually do something, if this person had been less directed by ideas, which are still based on his base impulses for recognition and love and even sex, I think a lot of it is getting redirected. And I don't want to be one of these people who strips everything down to like pure corrupted Freudian terms of it's all sex. There is a place for art and for ideas, and also nobody lives in reality. Like, it would be impossible to live in reality directly. It's always mediated by ideas, some form of idealism. Like it's impossible to get rid of idealism, but it becoming more ingrained to your immediate environment and simplifying. And I guess in Thoreau terms as well, simplifying in the way that he tried to do, focusing on concord and nothing outside of concord and nothing outside of his immediate grounding in that nature and the things around him and the things that his senses were experiencing, and knowing how to look. And this is what he described as well as the purpose of his reading a lot of the time, was knowing what to look for and knowing how to see. Knowing how to look is very important, and knowing how to value and appreciate, and really knowing how to embed yourself in your senses. Now that's important, and you can get that from your ideas. You know, they can feed into each other, and you can then extrapolate back up into the go back into the abstract, and you can write and create. But you need to have the experience first. You need to be in your immediate reality. You know, our minds are directed all over the place, and sometimes we can't help that. Sometimes we have been quite literally imprisoned, and you know, had to go inwards rather than outwards. We never really felt we had the permission to be amongst other people and to socialize with them, and to or to, I guess, even to, you know, sort of misbehave by engaging with others instead of just sitting there and being quiet and obedient and in our own minds. A lot of the time, I guess INTPs, you know, we start out really innocent and really obedient, and then we become these eccentrics, and then we become these rebels, and then we become totally irreverent to how lives are done and rules, and you know, we become the rule breakers later once we've realized. I've realized that a lot of stuff you can't logic your way out of it. It's just impossible. Like, you think that the problem is something that you need to think about, and sometimes we do. You know, sometimes we are so exhausted and so depressed by something that we're worrying about, or something that we think that we need to work out, so we do need to retreat momentarily. But many of these things aren't problems, and they're not things that you can think your way through, and they're not something that can be improved by logicking it. Sometimes it's a physical thing and you don't realize it. Sometimes that's getting netted up in your own head. But you know, a lot of the time it's a physical thing, and we don't really realize it, that it's totally biological, in the way that if you move, you know, if you start walking, or if you get a massage, like I had deep tissue massage, and it kind of totally took me out of my head and removed all of these weird OCD thoughts that I was having, and made me feel really normal and like I wanted to engage with people really immediately after having this massage. And so I think a lot of it is physical enough. You know, sometimes we do need to search for other people. You know, I came from a small town and moved to the city, and went to university and did better things, but I still think that I missed out on a lot of life and alienated a lot of people needlessly, because I was in my own head, and because I was cast in my broad net and roving around in my mind. And you know, people realize this, and it makes us bad. It makes us, we're not team players. You know, that's something that can be sympathetic. You see that in a fictional character, you feel sorry for them. But then you usually ascribe it to something in their past that's made them that way. When for us, just sometimes it's just who we are. And, you know, there's enough sympathy for who we are, but then there's also enough of the fact that that's our own flaw that we need to deal with. It's your task, INTPs. Overcome idealism, simplify, and just get on a fucking boat and go somewhere and do something, and have, you know, and again, these are ideas, you know, there's these, you know, I'm still an INTP, I'm still someone who's created my own sense of what is ideal to be doing. I'm still someone who's sitting here saying, simplify, quoting Thoreau, who, in my immediate reality, who the fuck is Thoreau? We can't live without ideas interfacing with the immediate. So, regardless, if you're, simplify, get on a boat, sail down the Concord River, talk to the people there, talk to the people around you, go outside, touch grass,